morning and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Shantel. How are we doing, guys? Okay, firstly, I have to say, I'm not 100% sure how this audio is going to turn out. Don't kill me. I am potting on location. I am in Turkey, so hello from Turkey. I thought I was going to be able to pre-record before I left on vacation, but time slipped away, so I had to pack up all my tech and take it with me. So if there's a bit of an echo, I'm really sorry. I'm actually in the bathroom because where the room is, the hotel room, there's these beetles or something, and they're in the trees and they are so loud and they do not stop. They do not stop. So I figured this is a little bit better. I've got a great episode for you guys today, so just stick with me through this technical difficulty. Firstly, I want to say I hope everyone's having an amazing week. Like I said, I'm on vacation. I'm in Bodrum, which is beautiful. I came here last year, and then by the time you listen to this, I will be on my way to Greece to ride out the rest of my vacation. And then next week, I will be talking to you from my desk in London. Okay, so before I get into today's episode, I have to share, I'm not the biggest TV person. My friends laugh at me because I just watch the same old shows over and over again. And in true Shantel fashion, I've been rewatching Scandal. And I loved Scandal when it came on originally. I was really, really into it at the time. And then some of the seasons got a bit weird, but I have decided to watch it again. And I'm just in love all over again. I think it originally aired 2012. And I feel like that was also the last good wave of TV, because some of the more nuanced discourse with community and community building is that we don't all kind of watch the same shows anymore. And TV is a really good and strong way, and has been for a really long time, of bringing people together. You know, you think of really major TV moments, you go to work the next day, everyone's talking about it, everyone's around the TV at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock to watch the same thing. And because with all the different streaming platforms and the 80 million shows, that we kind of don't have that in the same way. And I absolutely agree. Even though I'm not the biggest TV person, Scandal was such a moment when it was on TV, ABC Thursdays, Scandal Thursdays on Twitter. That was such a thing. You had the cast. So you had Quinn, you had Melly, you had Abby, you had Olivia. They would all be on Twitter live tweeting the show, Shonda Thursdays, because I think Grey's Anatomy either came on before Scandal or after. So you have two of Shonda Rhimes' show back to back, and it was truly a moment. I feel obviously 2012 was the re-election year, I think, for the Obamas, I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure Michelle Obama tweeted that she watched Scandal as well. It was just such a moment. You're watching Scandal, but then you're also on Twitter live tweeting during the show or during commercial breaks. I can't remember a time where TV was that unifying since then. I know there's waves, things like Love Island and stuff like that, but it just doesn't feel the same. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I am on Instagram, but yeah. So anyways, I loved Scandal at the time. And I was let me rewatch it and see if I still like it. Okay, so here are some of my notes. And I'm only up to maybe the end of season 3. So I still have ways to go because there were 7 seasons. But firstly, I will say that it's definitely a bit cringy. Now that I watch it back, I'm oh, some of this acting is a bit cringy. Some of this storyline is just a bit ridiculous. That's what I noticed firstly, right off the top. Obviously, if you watch Scandal at the time, you know that the monologues, that writer's room, chef's kiss. I hope we have a documentary or some sort of TV special on the Scandal writer's room, because so good. All of the main characters had their monologue moments, some stronger than others. Obviously, queen of the monologues over Olivia, contrary to popular belief, is definitely Melly. This is the president's wife. Her monologues are so strong. Her acting was always so good. There is never a moment where I'm yeah, Melly didn't really hit that. She absolutely killed it. And I felt that way when the show was on. She was so amazing. Obviously, Kerry Washington is the star, but Melly was, oh my God, the crown jewel of that show, truly. Now that I'm rewatching it, we did not give enough credit to Sally, the original vice president, Sally Langston, the Bible thumping Southerner. Her acting is so good. You could not tell me that that is not who that woman is in real life. I need to find a clip of her and see if she even has a Southern accent, because she was amazing. And I don't remember me feeling like that when I originally watched Scandal, and I don't remember her getting as much credit, but absolutely stunning acting. I also loved that other than Kerry Washington, none of the cast were already like household names. I really like that. I feel like shows that do that usually end up to be the best shows, as opposed to when it's already filmed with actors we've seen before. I think of shows like How I Met Your Mother, Friends, Big Bang Theory, Seinfeld. Like, these are people that are known maybe in other circles. I really like that about Scandal. Love Olivia Down, obviously. At least once a month on TikTok, I get someone that says I either remind them of Kerry Washington, but most of the time they literally say Olivia Pope, which is so funny to me. And I got it a lot when the show was on, but I'll take it because I think she's great, even though there's a lot of wrong with her, especially as the show progresses. Quinn annoys me so much when she goes astray and ends up like bamboozled into being into B613. It annoyed me at the time. And then when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, like this bothered me so much because she was just doing way too much, like very, very, very annoying. Her dating Charlie, also very annoying. Like, I just didn't really I don't really like this storyline, to be honest. Season 3, episode 14, when Olivia's in Cyrus's office and she's like laughing and saying that they're all murderers, such bad acting. Like, I don't even believe that she's actually laughing. Like, it sounds like she's coughing. Like, it just doesn't seem believable at all. It's just like, yeah, one of her like not so great moments. Obviously, Harrison ended up leaving the show because he got into some sort of legal trouble. I can't remember, but I remember it at the time. But I do feel like they didn't do enough with his character. As I'm watching season 1, season 2, season 3, I feel like he's going downhill as opposed to his character developing in the way that David Rosen's character developed, even though he was not a main star, in the way that Abby's developed, in the way that Quinn's developed. Like, I don't feel like Harrison ever got that, which I find disappointing now in hindsight, because even though he ended up having to leave the show, like, there was a lot there that he could have done, which ties me into my point of I'm disappointed that Harrison didn't fill the role of Steven when Steven left. So if you watch Scandal, Steven is Olivia's right hand, and he is in only season 1. I absolutely loved Steven. I loved his vibe. I loved his character. I loved his relationship with Olivia. And I was so annoyed that they wrote him out. And I didn't think it was good because Huck is not a traditional man, like, in that realm. And then you just had Harrison, and then Harrison ended up leaving. And then they never really developed Harrison to be like the Steven. So I didn't really like that. And the reason why I liked Steven so much is because, one, he was like hot, he was a bachelor, trying to settle down, but kind of struggling at it. But also he was the only one that could really call Olivia's bluff. And initially he was the only one that knew of the relationship between Olivia and the president. And there's a scene where they're in her office and Steven's like, you can't have him. And it's such a good moment because it's the only real person, especially at that time, who's like Olivia's peer. And I just feel like we never really got a good enough moment with Steven that we could have. Like, there was enough material there to keep him on. I don't know why they took him off, and I was really bummed about it at the time. Obviously, because I've watched Scandal already, spoiler alert, Steven comes back in season 4 for one episode. And I will tell you guys, I remember watching that episode live because, of course, I used to watch it every Thursday. And Olivia gets abducted and she is walking with her captors. And the scene is like, she's standing there in front of a man, but you can't really see who the man's face is. And the man pulls the bag off her head and it's fucking Steven. The way I screamed, like, I still remember that moment like it was yesterday. I was literally sitting in my living room. The way I screamed when I saw Steven, I was overjoyed. And I had a friend at the time, we were friends and coworkers, and she texted me immediately and she was like, I thought of you instantly. It's like, of course, because I loved Steven so much, and it's just making me laugh because that was so long ago, but it still like brings a smile to my face. And then finally, I fucking love Jake. I love Jake so much. He's played by Scott Foley, who I think was in Party of Five. I might be like mixing this up. And if you're British, you probably have no idea what Party of Five is anyways. But Scott Foley is like a 90s heartthrob, and I can't remember. No, sorry. I think he was in Felicity. He was in Felicity, and he was in Scrubs. Yes, that's where I know him from, is Scrubs, not Party of Five. so hot. I know that the idea is that Olivia and Fitz are always going to have a thing. They're always going to go back to each other. But I hate that the storyline with Jake couldn't get fleshed out a bit more. Like, I feel like Jake was really good for Olivia. Even when he became command of B613, I still feel like he was very good for Olivia. And I hate that scene of Olivia shutting down B613's money and then like Jake choking her. I hate that because, okay, why are you choking a woman like on national TV? Again, a moment where, Olivia, you're just doing too much. Like, all of a sudden now you want to shut down B613 when your dad doesn't have his job, but you didn't feel that way before. And it's just like, we kind of all knew that Command was her dad. Like, I know she knew that. So yeah, and that scene when Jake is in front of her door and she's like, Jake, go home. And he's like, I don't have a home. And he starts crying because obviously like that's like one of the perils of like B613 is just like, you're just alone by yourself because of all these things you have to manage. And I just hated it. Like, I feel like they could have had a better moment. That moment post choking when they're in the office, like Olivia's dad, Fitz, Cyrus, whatever. And he's like, so part of your plan was like sleeping with me so you could get information. And I'm just so glad that Fitz was there to hear that. Like, yeah, I love it. Just love it. Even though she just like can't leave him and can't let him go. But anyways, that was a very long intro. Anyways, I'm rewatching Scandal. I'm really liking it. If you liked Scandal at the time or if you've watched it again, please DM me because I feel like we have so much to talk about. And yeah, I just love it. Anyways, let's get into today's episode. Okay, so we know that women are subject to a plethora of rules, right? But I wanted to make an episode because this is something that we all wrestle with, even if we don't name it out loud. There's just so many invisible rules that we're expected to follow as women. Some of them you know about, and some of them you are never told about until the moment you're supposed to deliver. And you're like, wait a minute, like, where did this come from? How would I have known this? And when was I supposed to? Part of the idea of this pod and something that I'm doing in my life for my life is just having self-actualization. And I talk about that pretty often when I'm talking about Sage Sorority to others, but I haven't really gone into it too much on the pod itself. And self-actualization is really the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and potentialities, especially considered as a drive or need present in everyone. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization is the highest personal aspirational human need in the hierarchy. It represents where one's potential is fully realized after more basic needs, such as for the body and the ego, have been fulfilled. So examples of that could be like achieving a peak experience, being all you can be, realizing your dreams and goals, being true to your values, achieving inner peace, whatever that means, living a fulfilling and meaningful life, making a positive difference in the world, experiencing joy, happiness, and love on a regular basis. And part of that, I think, for women that is really not the same for men is knowing which rules serve you and which don't, and giving space for the fact that that can ebb and flow depending on where you are at in your life. You have to know which ones you need to just burn down to the ground and which ones to respect, whether or not you like it, but because it puts you in a better position. So yes, are the rules absolutely made up? Of course. But the game of life is very, very, very real. And anyone who thinks that life is not a game is at best naive, at worst a detriment to you, because it absolutely is. And confusing those two things can cost you a lot. More than just money. Money would be the cheapest thing it can cost you. It can cost you time, it can cost you energy, and as a woman, let's just be so fucking for real, it could also cost you your safety. This is not about rebellion just for rebellion's sake. I want to emphasize that. It's truly about discernment, which is like one of my favorite words of life. It's about knowing when to bend, what to do, what not to do strategically. So yes, the rules are absolutely made up. You need to think about all the rules and guidance and notions that you've ever absorbed without even questioning them. Like for women, wait to be chosen, don't move too fast in dating. When you're younger, it's like, don't date. And then one day you wake up and your mom, your grandma, and your aunties are asking you, where's your husband? You have to stay at a job for at least 2 years or you look flaky. You have to be moving up in your career. You should always be making more money. More money is the true marker of your career success, etc., etc. Don't raise your freelancer rates until you're qualified enough. It's everything, right? There's rules for everything. You hear one rule, then you hear another one that contradicts it. And then sometimes you ever have these moments where you're like, honestly, who decides this stuff? These aren't like laws of physics. They're just social defaults, scripts that somebody said or somebody wrote or somebody did maybe years ago or decades ago, and they're just perpetuated, right? I always say stop to think, especially when it comes to beliefs, like, are these beliefs even mine anymore? Do they serve me? Is it something that I actively believe, or is something that I'm just regurgitating? And oftentimes people just regurgitate things without even thinking about it. And if we're being a little bit more honest, and maybe this might sound a bit sinister, these type of rules usually are created by people who benefit from women being passive, quiet, grateful, patient, and feeling generally undeserving, which is a very common thread and through line throughout history, especially modern history. Here's a really good example. Salary secrecy. Why do we not talk about money? Especially women. We are never taught to discuss our pay. It's unprofessional. But the only person who benefits from coworkers not discussing your pay is the company itself. Right? Because here's what's happening. 42% of Gen Z workers are openly sharing their salaries with their coworkers, and 40% of millennials. So we all know that, is there a downside to sharing your salary? Absolutely. You're worried that that person could then go to HR and say, well, X amount of person's making more than me and they shouldn't, and and now throwing you under the bus all when you were trying to help somebody. I'm not saying to do things blindly. Again, the word of the day is discernment. But does it help you to know what your coworkers are making? Absolutely. I've been in that situation many times, because can you be taken advantage of? Absolutely. Is that often what happens? Absolutely. You have to always ask yourself, who does this silence serve? And in that situation, it serves the company. It doesn't serve you or your coworkers. Take any rule or any strong belief that you believe in right now, dating, work, friendship, kids, family, whatever, and ask yourself, who benefits from me following this? Who benefits from me thinking this? Who benefits from me perpetuating this idea? If the answer isn't yourself, your children, or your future self, it is time to review. Now, with that said, just because some of the rules are arbitrary, fake, unhelpful, etc., that doesn't mean that we still don't live in the system and house that we do. We still live inside of structures, white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism. These are not the shark in the water with you, alongside you. This is the water itself. This is an analogy I use all the time. Racism, white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, misogyny. These are not different sharks in the water. They, unfortunately, are the water. So what that means is you use discernment within the umbrella. Are these umbrellas that we want? Some are going to say yes. Some are going to say no. It really depends on what side of the fence you're on. And that's truly a conversation for another day. But for example, like your dating app strategy, that might be influenced by a made-up social rule. Your job interview, that's embedded in a completely different system. The way you dress on a job interview, the way you speak, the fact that your name might get less interaction from an HR associate than if you had a fake name. You still have to use discernment and move accordingly. Harvard Business Review, which I love, aka HBR, did a study where they said Black women receiving significantly less feedback in professional environments than their white counterparts. Yeah, Black women receive significantly less feedback in professional environments than their white counterparts. Now, we can talk about why that is and where that's coming from, again, on another pod. But ultimately, less feedback means less opportunity to grow, to course correct, to advance. It's less of a dialogue with your superiors. So what I'm saying, TLDR, is that you have to be smart and you can't just ignore everything. And that could be that you just have a bad boss, or that could be wildly structural. Look at dating apps. The data shows that Black women and Asian men receive fewer matches than any other demographic. This should not surprise anyone in the least. As someone who was on dating apps a lot, it wasn't my experience, or I didn't feel like I wasn't getting matches, but I would never say that I don't believe that's not the experience, because I absolutely do. And that's not personal preference, right? People, especially men, they like to throw that word around. preference. Even preference, sexual preference, intimate preference, you have to know, where is that coming from? Where is that shaped from? These are different structures. These are completely different systems that we still operate in, right? I saw on TikTok recently that someone said, you're not unattractive. They're just not marketing your beauty right now. Couldn't be more accurate. Could not be more accurate. I think I referenced this in another podcast. Like, pink used to be a color for boys. Long hair used to signal virility in men. Like, beauty is marketing. You're hot today, you're not hot tomorrow. 10 years ago, BBL and dark hair was everything that everyone wanted. Now it's Ozempic face and Manjaro hips. Beauty is marketing. Again, another pod, but I just want to put that out there. And as someone who's all about the manifestation, you can't just manifest your way out of structural systems. You can't manifest your way out of white supremacy. You can't always just play the game. And sometimes, yes, oftentimes, playing the game is fucking exhausting. Sometimes you have to move through these structures, not from fear, but from awareness, and not necessarily from playing small, but just playing very smart, time and a place. There's a difference between being naive and strategic, and wisdom comes from knowing which moment calls for which. I hope that makes sense. Something that we also need to get very clear on is that even within these confines and within these structures, there's a difference between strategy and having discernment and completely abandoning yourself. And I do want to make that distinction because I do think it's super important. There's a massive difference between being strategic and shape-shifting yourself into nothing. If you're saying yes when every cell in your body is screaming no, if you're keeping quiet to stay likable, if you're tolerating mediocrity because you want to be the cool girl, you want to be the chill girl, that is not strategy. That is just self-abandonment. Let me make this a bit more real. So moving in together. I'm not here to tell you to never live with someone before marriage, but I'm here to ask you, why are you doing it? Because if you're doing it to save money, or because you believe it's time, or because you're hoping proximity will create the clarity that conversation hasn't, that's not you being strategic. That's you using convenience as a substitute for real commitment. That's you putting a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. The real question wouldn't be, should I move in with them? The real question would be, have my minimum standards for emotional safety been met? Not just will they be met, or I'm assuming they will be met when we live together, but in intimacy, in this partnership as it stands, period. So the rule, basically, isn't don't live together or do live together. The rule is don't confuse proximity for partnership. Don't confuse proximity for the future. Don't confuse your boyfriend for your husband. Does that make sense? You guys know that I believe, or I don't know if I've maybe said it on the pod, but I made a TikTok saying that I don't believe in promoting men to the next level just because it's time. I don't believe in that. A friend does not become a boyfriend through time. A boyfriend should not become a fiance through time. A fiance should not become a husband through time. A husband should not become a father through time. It should be because you believe that that person is ready for that next step, and they have already showed you that they are capable of making that next leap with you and doing it at a certain cadence together. Does that make sense? I want to tell you that contrary to popular belief, you can actually write your own rules. And I actually encourage you to do that, given that it's your one and only beautiful, juicy life. What nobody tells you about power is that it's not about breaking all the rules. Like, anyone can do that. Teenagers do that all the time. It often ends up in very negative situations. Power is about knowing which rules you choose to live by and the why. Contrarianism, which is one of my least favorite qualities in people. I cannot tell you how much I hate a professional contrarian. It really bothers me. Anyways, is not about confidence, and rebellion is not this like revolutionary standpoint, right? Real authentic power comes from your own standards and maintaining those standards even when it's hard, even when it's ugly, even when it goes against the grain. A really good example of this would be like, okay, my boundaries are for me to maintain, right? And if you grate my boundaries or you go against them, it's for me to enforce them and make the tough decision. Not because I think it makes me better, or harder or tough or whatever, but because that's the only way to garner respect is to not just talk about it, but be about it. For example, I was having a conversation with my friend just yesterday, and I was saying that when I was doing my 50 first dates, one of the things I used to look out for was men in my age group and older that have never really gone through anything serious. It's just such a telltale sign of someone and their maturity. So like no aging parents, no divorce, no death, nothing like that. No real gut-wrenching heartbreak. I find it really hard to relate to a man like that because the only real sacrifice, and I'm generalizing here, the only real sacrifice that they've made is probably in their line of work. And that is not the same or is not a fundamental foundation for emotional intelligence and astuteness and care and intimacy that you need in a relationship. Another day, another pod, but just trust me on this. I need to see some sort of grit and grief and having your heart really, really torn and you being able to bounce back from that. Now, he was saying, I feel like in some ways it's similar for women, and it might be. I don't date women, so I don't know. But what I do know is that just the act of being a girl turned into a woman under patriarchy, you're going to go through some of that. And you're going to go through it early and you're going to go through it often in a way that a man is just not. Argue with your mom. These are not like universal truths, like not me holding up my Bible, but it's something that I am guided with, my own metric, right? It's just like if you say, I don't take calls after 9 p.m. unless it's an emergency because my evening is up to me, right? Your mom, once you put your kids down for bedtime, no phone calls, no texting, no nothing. It's one of your rules. Doesn't make you a good person, doesn't make you a bad person. It's just one of your rules. So if you're building your own, I want you to ask yourself, and obviously I mentioned something small, like a little rule, this is what I do after 9 p.m., and something big, like when I'm dating, this is something I look out for men between the ages of 30 and up. So I ask you, when you're thinking about things, does this choice or does this decision preserve or honor your self-respect? And again, this can be really small. Does texting your situationship or texting this guy that you have a fling with, does it honor your self-respect? Does it get you closer to your self-actualization? Or does it kind of take you further away? Be honest with yourself. Is this dynamic actually reciprocal, or am I doing emotional gymnastics to make it seem balanced? One thing I know for certain and two things I know for sure, a lot of people are doing a lot of things just for the gram, just for the outside view. Trust me on this. Like, I would literally bet my last dollar on this. And 3, if you had a future child, daughter or son, what would you tell them to do? I feel like that's a really good one because there are a lot of things we'll do for ourselves. But if this was your little one asking you for that advice, what would you tell them? These questions create standards, and standards create boundaries. And boundaries, creating them, but mostly maintaining them, create the life that you actually want to live and the life that you're actually proud of. I will leave you with this. Yes, the rules are made up, okay? They're fucking made up, right? And you might be like, okay, I don't care if it's made up, I still like it. And okay, I don't like that this is made up and I'm not going to do it. Okay, cool. It's like when people say, oh, Valentine's Day is a made up holiday. All holidays are made up. It's just another day. But if you want to operate outside of that system, then good for you. Anyways, yes, the rules are made up, but the systems aren't. Your power, and I'm telling you guys, your real deep to the core power comes from knowing the difference. You get to live by standards that serve your growth, your safety, your peace. This is not about announcing it, okay? There actually should not be an announcement to your followers, to your friends, to your man, whatever. This is not preaching. Like, all of that stuff goes in one ear and out the other because we know you're not serious. You're not really about that life. This is about you being clear first, looking inward, like I always say, and then acting outward on that clarity. So a little takeaway is I want you to think about anything that no longer serves you, that you've kind of said for a really long time and you're just like, wait a minute, do I actually even believe this? Like, I want you to think about that. Then think about something that is a new rule for yourself, that actually this is how I feel and this is how I want to operate for the foreseeable future. Something that honors who you're becoming and what's on the way as opposed to who you used to be. I hope that makes sense. This episode was a little different, a little bit more abstract and a little bit more theory, but I hope you guys liked it. If you did or you didn't, you know where to find me. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube under Shantel Russo or at the Sage Sorority Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I love you guys so much. I will talk to you next week from London. Have a beautiful week and have a beautiful weekend. Bye.